So you are live inside the New Vision tour bus. Pretty typical day. I'm here working. Rachel's up front driving. You can see a little bit of where we've been living for the last 120 days. We're actually just pulling in right now to the Cleveland Clinic. The Glickman Tower is right here. This is where the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine, one of the most interesting and exciting places in medicine right now, as a major medical institution with tons of credibility, is looking at functional medicine as an operating system for the future of chronic disease. We're going to get a tour with Mark Hyman. We're going to see what's going on. We're going to see how the center's been designed and how it runs, and really excited to bring you along with us. So watch this space. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. We've got an epic lineup tonight of speakers. We've got an awesome panel here. Amazing group of functional doctors, technology, activists for a leap forward in medicine. You know, our goal is to make it easy for practitioners to learn in community. There's a lot of community happening tonight. I want to say welcome to all of the communities that are watching at home. This ecosystem that has been set up by the meetup groups, we believe will be the future ecosystem of this evolved primary care network that we are looking to develop, and it all revolves around you.
Welcome to the Functional Forum. Thanks for joining us in the charge to accelerate the evolution of medicine. Please welcome your host, James Maskell.
Hello and welcome to Cleveland. If you've been following the Functional Forum for a long time, you know that this is a super exciting moment for me and for the Functional Forum. Back on the 4th episode ever of the Functional Forum, back in May 2014, Dr. Mark Hyman came on to announce the opening or the starting of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine.
I want to share with you a vision of what the future might look like, because we're at the precipice of that. And we don't have to be apologetic anymore for what we're doing, because we're doing the type of medicine that will be the future of healthcare. A couple of years ago at Davos, I met Toby Cosgrove. And for 2 years, he's been chasing me to try to get me to come to Cleveland. Now, there's no way I'm moving to Cleveland. But we've been in conversation. I said, okay, what do you want? And they really got that he was interested in looking at innovation that was going to change the way we practice and deliver healthcare. And that he saw what was happening in the field of functional medicine and the things that we were doing and realized that that's where the future was. And I said, Toby, you don't want me there. Because if I go there, I'm going to be very disruptive. I'm going to tell you that most of what you're doing is wrong, that in fact you're harming people, that I would want to implement programs that are going to empty out half your hospitals and clear out most of your procedure rooms, and that are going to reduce hospital visits and hospital stays and doctor's visits dramatically. Are you okay with that? So the amazing story is that despite my tremendous resistance and my continual efforts to convince him why it was a really bad idea to have me there, we are going to start a functional medicine institute at the Cleveland Clinic in September. And my criteria for doing it was to do it right. So we're going to put millions and millions of dollars behind this of the Cleveland Clinic's money, which has never been done before to help this field. We're going to create a clinical program where we want to bring in best practices from around the world. We want to create innovation summits where we bring in some of the top thinkers, including some of you in this room, for summits where we download what are the best practices for the conditions that we treat. What is the best thinking out there? What is the best treatments available, the best diagnostics? How do we begin to create practice guidelines and clinical programs that are scalable and can be taught around the country?
Here we are 4 years later. We're going to take a tour around the center. We're going to hear from Dr. Hyman, some of the practitioners that work in the center, and we're going to take a look. But we just arrived in Cleveland, and we just arrived at the venue. You can see the Glickman Tower here behind us. But it just so happens that on Wednesdays, at exactly the time we're here, there's a farmer's market going on. We've been taking a tour around the farmer's market, healthy fruits and vegetables. The staff shop here. I guess some of the patients probably shop here too. But just to give you an idea of, you know, the culture of the Cleveland Clinic and what's happening, it's super exciting to see it. So we'll take a walk around the farmer's market and then we'll take you inside. All right, we are here with Carolyn Wright, the nurse manager here at the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine. So I know that we're going to take a tour in a minute. Really excited about that. Just before we get on the tour, I know there's some pretty unique things about the center sort of structurally.
Sure. So we are well building certified, which is an accreditation that really incorporates promoting healing and the well-being aspects of the human body. Certain things like our air, water, the light coming in from the outside, all to promote the body's own circadian rhythms and really promote healing.
I know that's a problem in a lot of other hospitals where there's just not a lot of natural light and so forth. So it's really cool to be able to, start from the ground up to be able to do that. So I'm really excited about the tour. Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
All right, so one of the things I'd like to point out is our artwork is all nature-driven, again, to promote the health and well-being of the patient. So in our exam, we call them exam suites. We actually have the curved desk to kind of incorporate the ability for the patient to feel like more comfortable to come around the table. We incorporate most patients that bring their families in, and they have more than one person generally in the room. We do have the dual monitors to help explain to the patient. The provider can be in our EMR and also in Living Matrix to show the patient their timeline and matrix and really drive down to what is going on with the patient and explain it to them so that they better understand it. And then again, in the exam rooms, you can see that we have the natural light coming in again to help promote the circadian rhythms of both the patient and our staff. So well building is really to promote not only healing of the patient, but to keep the staff healthy and well as well.
Yeah, super cool. Look right here. Timeline and matrix, very familiar for most of the people who are watching. This is happening right now in a major medical institution. Super exciting to see it happening. All right, where are we going next?
Okay, so here we are in one of our shared medical appointment rooms. The patients come in here each week, once a week, and gather as a group. They see the provider, the health coach, or the nutritionist, depending on what week and session it is for that class. And they really get to bond and share their experiences. They share recipes. They start becoming friends. Towards the end of the sessions, they begin sharing emails. They start hanging out together. But we've really found these to be very successful for our patients. And we think that the reason behind that is really the bond that they have with each other and the support that they get within the group.
How do you decide which patients to put in a group together?
They actually sign up for the classes themselves. They get to pick whatever appointment time or day is convenient for them in their schedule. So we have certain classes at different times on each day.
Amazing. So has it surprised you sort of the degree to which people are excited about this kind of model and the success they've had?
Absolutely. In the beginning, we had a lot of resistance. Patients I don't really want to do an appointment with an entire group, or, I want a one-on-one appointment with a provider. But the more that they've heard from other patients and friends of theirs and heard the successes that they've shared, they really start to get engaged and excited. And we've seen so many success stories out of the shared medical appointments.
What's it like on the provider side, seeing people answering each other's questions and supporting each other like that?
Great question. So it's so satisfying, and it really helps to prove that, once you give the tools to someone and you show them how to fish, they can actually teach other people how to fish. And so we really have seen it to be it's a satisfying feeling to know that you're helping everyone kind of understand functional medicine. You're spreading the word.
Yeah, one of the things we've seen all across the people who are doing these kind of visits across the country is that often someone who's actually reversed their chronic disease is actually a much better sort of source of authority than even a medical professional, because they've actually been there and done it.
Validating what they've been doing.
Have you tried to find ways to sort of bring together the success stories with the people just starting out?
In fact, some of our patients have been within the clinic, employees here, and to see them kind of come through the program and transform and then go back to their coworkers, other providers specifically, and show them kind of how they've improved, you really create a lot of awareness and you get a lot more interest.
You heard it here. If you haven't tried your group visit yet, they're doing it here. It's working. Shared medical visits, the power of community. We've been talking about this for 4 years. It's about time you tried it. All right, let's go and see something else. All right, so we are now in the shared provider suite. There's practitioners working together here. So tell us a little bit about how this came to be and sort of what's it like working in this model.
We decided to really bring the team together to collaborate and communicate better. We have a provider, and a dietitian, health coach, and support staff in each area, and it gives them the opportunity to come in between patients and kind of collaborate, communicate about the specific patient that they just saw or are about to see. In addition to that, the pod model allows other providers to be in the same area so that instead of being in different offices, we can all communicate together, bounce ideas off each other, ask for treatment suggestions or ideas around specifics.
What's it like working in that kind of environment compared to where you'd worked before?
Awesome. I love the collaboration, being able to talk and feel like you really do feel like you're part of a team. You're able to really learn more. The providers start to teach more to the dietitians, the health coaches, and my team as well.
So how do you separate the work of the dietitian and the health coach in the team?
The dietitian is really focused on the meal, the food planning, the prep, and helping the patient kind of figure out what they should eat. The health coach is more driven towards the specific goals that the patient wants to do to get to where they need to be, and helps the patient really achieve those goals with specifics, time, measurable, attainable goals. Yeah. So they collaborate a lot, but the dietitian is really driven towards the nutrition food portion.
Yeah, there's a huge part of the food here. So yeah, that's really interesting. So see, practitioners working together, separate space, the way that it's organized, all very important. All right, let's move on. All right, so right here in the clinic, we have a lab. So what's happening here?
So this is where the patient comes after their appointment with the provider. They come in, they get their blood work drawn. We have one phlebotomist. He's pretty much ours. Full time, and he's also incorporating functional medicine in here while we speak. If you can smell the diffuser, and he has the music going, so he's also living, breathing the work we do. So it's great.
It's nice. What kind of difference does it make, like being able to get the results so quickly and having the stuff all in house rather than having to send out the whole time?
Much better, more quick, very standardized, and the process is smooth for the patient.
All right, so much to learn here at the Cleveland Clinic. Been such a thrill to come in here and have a tour. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for doing it. Really excited to see what's going on. And I hope if you're watching at home, you got some good ideas about how you can improve your functional medicine practice, better outcomes, more collaboration, getting patients well. You see it here first at the Cleveland Clinic. So, Doc, thanks so much for inviting us to be here and to come and see the center. As a starting point, maybe you could just give us an idea of the scope of this Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine project.
So the Center for Cleveland Clinic here was conceived of about 5 years ago, and it was after an invitation by Toby Cosgrove, the CEO, to bring functional medicine into an academic medical center, which had never been done before. And he said, you're only limited by your vision and your leadership, and I'll put the operations and the cash behind it, which he did. And we've been able to build an extraordinary center that's really a beacon for around the world of what could be done with functional medicine in an academic center. We have a center which has over 50 staff. We have almost 18,000 square feet. We built a brand new facility to serve our patients. We are innovating in many spaces in group visits, shared medical appointments, which are showing great outcomes. We're doing clinical research on every patient that comes in. We're doing randomized trials. We're doing cost of care analysis. We're looking at outcome data on all our patients. And we're also exploring other kinds of research around the brain, around prostate cancer, around digestive disease issues, Alzheimer's. So we really have an amazing group of people within the center, but more amazing is the network of people and experts within Cleveland Clinic who are all showing up at the table, willing to work with us, explore this model, and innovate with us in a way that's going to really transform healthcare. We're also working on medical education programs. We have residency rotations, medical school rotations. We're working on a fellowship and building a whole curriculum of grand rounds. We're also doing community-based work as well. We've launched in 25 or so churches in the community in the Daniel Plan. And we also are launching innovative projects, for example, like the food pharmacy, which we're trying to get off the ground as an idea that we can provide food insecure patients with diabetes, food and instruction and support, and will literally change their lives and save huge amounts of money. So there's a lot of efforts we're doing across the spectrum of clinical care, around research, community-based care, education, and that's really our mission. And we're exploring starting in Abu Dhabi, which is Cleveland Clinic site in Canada and Florida. So there's a huge interest in soon London when London opens in 2020.
So what's it been like to sort of interact with other parts of the hospital that might not know what functional medicine is?
Well, there was a group here who was skeptical. There's a group that was very open and curious, and then there's a group that are enthusiastic supporters. And so we're finding out who those people are, and we're finding collaborators. And for example, the digestive disease group wants to work with us on inflammatory bowel. The endocrinology group wants to work with us on diabetes. We've got people from the Urologic Institute working on prostate cancer. I just was approached by a cardiology fellow to work on a research project comparing ketogenic diets to Mediterranean diets for heart disease and cardiovascular risk factors. We were in Abu Dhabi. Everybody's all in to sort of help and figure out how to work together and improve the model, because everybody understands that the model of acute care applied to chronic disease is doomed to failure, and as the cost and structures change and reimbursement is going to be based on value, not just seeing more patients or volume, that we have to get better outcomes at lower costs, and functional medicine really provides a window to do that.
So Doc, obviously, listening and watching this show are functional medicine doctors and practitioners and coaches all around the world. What do you think that you've learned here that is most useful for the practitioners and people who are practicing in small towns and cities all across the world?
Well, I think what we're doing is trying to establish an evidence base, right? So I think this is one of the gaps in functional medicine is where's the research? So there's a lot of research on the components, on vitamin D, on diet, on exercise, on sleep, on stress, on even heavy metals and toxins. There's a lot of bits and pieces, but no one's studied the whole approach and how that works. And I think building the evidence base, proving the value proposition by measuring outcomes and costs on all patients, by doing randomized trials, by collaborating with other partners and showing better outcomes, it will help to move the field forward, because the biggest comment we get is where's the evidence? I think I often laugh when I hear that, because there's 800,000 articles published every year in the medical literature. I'm like, how many of those have you read? Where's the evidence? It's in there, you just haven't read it. And I think there are, again, lack of large controlled trials using multimodal interventions. But I think of all the components and bits that we're doing and the areas we're working on, there's plenty of research on inflammation and chronic disease, on the microbiome, on nutritional status, on lifestyle factors. There's plenty of research.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things I really wanted to know, I know you were practicing functional medicine for like 2 decades before you ever came to the Cleveland Clinic. What have you learned about practicing functional medicine from being here at the Cleveland Clinic that you hadn't learned in the previous 20 years?
Well, what was really striking is we had 3,000 people on the waiting list, and I had a belief that putting people in shared medical appointments or groups was going to be effective, and that was really what we should do for everybody coming in the center. We didn't have the ability to establish that at the beginning, but we built a very robust program of shared medical appointments, and we're finding clinically is that when they come into these group appointments, they have 10 weeks, 2 hours a week, and then there's follow-on support after that. That there are more profound changes than even one-on-one visits, that the outcomes are better, that patients do better, that they change behavior more sustainably than the one-on-one doctor visit, which we thought was the highest end of the treatment spectrum. Turns out that maybe it's the shared medical appointment. So now if you're getting insurance reimbursement, and the economics of it actually even work better. If not, you can charge for it. I know there are practices in functional medicine where you don't even see the doctor. You do a 30-day program, diet and lifestyle program with supplements, and if you're not better after that, then you get to see the doctor. And we see the same thing. For example, we see that in our group, half of the people who go through the shared medical appointments don't even need to see the doctor. There are people like Henri Roca, who's working at the VA, who does groups. They don't do testing, they don't have supplements. They do health coaching to get them engaged, and they do lifestyle training for chronic pain, and often, and you have to go through all that before you can even see the doctor. And often they don't even need to see the doctor. So I think it's an underutilized strategy.
So Doc, on the tour we saw the telemedicine visits. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're using technology to bring this care to more people?
Yeah, so we are one of the leaders in virtual visits in the whole organization. And we are the leader if you count the number of practitioners we have to the number of virtual visits. And it's a definite movement towards doing telemedicine and virtual care. We're also even exploring virtual groups, which I think is the next frontier. And we're also seeing amazing access to doing these shared medical appointments as well. So we've really changed our approach in terms of how we access patients. We want to go in the community. We want to do more virtual work.
So Doc, how would you compare the energy here in the Functional Medicine Center to the rest of the Cleveland Clinic?
Overall, Cleveland Clinic has got great energy. People are creative, they're innovative, they're thoughtful, they're open, they're collaborative. I was overwhelmed by how great the staff was here, all the way from, people who, wash the bathrooms to, the top level administration. Everybody's really on the same team. We're all collaborating in great ways. A lot of people want to come work at the Center for Functional Medicine because we know that we're doing really great stuff here. We're doing innovative work, we're doing innovative research. We get to work with patients in a different way. The space is amazing. People say this is the best space in Cleveland Clinic. It's all well-being certified. So the air, the water is all filtered. All the materials are all non-toxic. The lighting is all special so people don't get fatigued. So it's really an environmentally friendly space for the workplace.
As you go around the country and you speak to other hospitals and other organizations, are there a lot of people with eyeballs on this thing,
yes,
seeing what's happening?
Not a month goes by when some group doesn't want to come by and have a look, whether it's UC Irving or whether it's Johns Hopkins or whether it's people from Peru, teams from Peru, from China, from Abu Dhabi. I mean, everybody's interested in what we're doing, and I think there's a hunger for how do we implement this. If Cleveland Clinic is doing it, what do they know that we don't know, and why is this important? So that's creating a catalytic effect in the entire community, saying, okay, this is something real.
So Doc, we've seen over the last 3 years, this journey from concept now to 18,000 square foot center and all the research and otherwise. What do you think and what do you expect to see over the next 3 years as this starts to build out?
I think, really building and scaling our shared medical appointments throughout the organization, researching it and using it for dealing with chronic disease on a community-based level. I think that's really important. If we could build this food pharmacy project and then change reimbursement because of it for Medicare and Medicaid and private insurers, that would be a massive win. If we can launch some of our initiatives around inflammatory bowel disease and dementia, I think, again, huge win. If we can be a key player in the enterprise weight management strategy, how do we design the right interventions and programs for weight management, it would be great. So I think that's pretty exciting. Also going to Abu Dhabi and starting a functional medicine program there is high on our list and is a really unique opportunity because it's sort of a green field where anything's possible and everybody wants to innovate.
So Doc, thank you so much for inviting us here to come and film, and just really appreciate the opportunity to show this to doctors and practitioners across the world who are interested in what you're doing. And I have no doubt with the research and the care and the innovation that's happening here that the impact of this event and this center will reverberate through the decades and centuries to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are now going to connect with Dr. Elizabeth Bradley, who is the medical director for the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine. So Dr. Bradley, tell us a little bit about how you ended up in this position as the medical director.
Well, I have a long history of nutrition. Way back when, I was a nutritionist and had gone to Cornell and then Tufts and worked at Mass General. Found medicine, and then 25 years later, here I am. But prior to that, I was doing functional medicine at Dartmouth, and they needed to have a medical director for the center here. And I was a medical director there at Dartmouth, was in charge of residents and doing my own functional medicine in my practice, plus internal medicine. So when I saw the ad for this, I said, you know what, I'm a perfect fit.
Amazing. So I hear that you recently went back to your 25-year reunion. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
It was very exciting. It was at Dartmouth at Geisel School of Medicine, and having worked in medicine for so many years and then having found functional medicine, it is so much fun that I was able to share with all my classmates that in internal medicine it can be really hard and you're working long hours, and then finding functional medicine has created a passion back in my life for working and wanting to work. So I get to help patients. In internal medicine, you tend to end up putting patients on a lot of medication and pills, and actually functional medicine, you just do the opposite. You take them off of their medications if they're ready and they're losing weight, they're changing their diet. A lot of it's lifestyle, and all of that will make them healthier and better. And I can't believe that I'm more energized at work now than I had been in the past.
Yeah, tell us about the energy of all the other people that are working here in the center, because it seems like there's a good vibe in the clinic.
We have such an array of different people here. We have family medicine, we have internal medicine, we have MDs and DOs, plus we have PAs and nurse practitioners, so it's a nice array of different specialties of medicine coming together for the same purpose and cause. And they've all come from different parts of the country and different parts of their kind of stage of practice. And so some come with a wealth of knowledge and others are just so eager to learn that they are diving into everything and they bring good energy. So to me, we feed off of each other.
So Doc, I understand that you just attended your 25th anniversary of medical school at Dartmouth. How did it go? What was it like telling them about your current role and what was their feedback?
So because the Cleveland Clinic is so supportive of innovation and wanting us to prove what we're doing, especially through our evidence-based randomized controlled trials, I'm finding that your support is coming from in many different areas here, from the top down and also within different institutes. And Dartmouth was just not ready for it yet. They were still having to understand what it means. And part of that is cultural, which is the term functional medicine. A lot of people don't understand what that actually means. And at Dartmouth, they have a functional restoration program. So people thought, oh, you work to get people better through rehab. And it's like, no, we're doing more like root cause medicine and find out the cause of what's going on. So I think that's a cultural shift that's going to happen. And functional medicine started more on the West Coast. It's coming east. So people were able to find me out when I was there. But what I tried to do is work functional medicine in my own practice by introducing it. But I didn't have a lot of support from administration. So that was the harder aspect of it, to get it going.
Absolutely. So what have been some of the sort of highlights in the 18 months since you've been here of what you've been able to achieve, and where do you see it going from here?
There have been so many. So our research we have at least one case study that's gone through. A lot of our randomized controlled trials, we still have another year for that. I just saw a patient today that lost diabetic, that is part of the research, that lost 40 pounds. She's off of insulin, off of her blood pressure medication. She's never felt this great in her whole life, and she wished that her doctors had kind of introduced her to this previously. But besides doing the research, we're actually being asked by a lot of the departments to get involved in their care of their patients. So the GI department is very excited, DDSI. Also, there's an innovative medical school that's starting here through the University of Ohio and Cleveland Clinic. So it's a 6-year med school residency program, and they want functional medicine to be integral and a thread throughout the training of it. So that just started this year, and we're going to be doing more of that within the next year.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really exciting. And what are the sort of the disease categories that you're most excited about, what you've been able to do here at the center?
So I'm an internist, so I tend to see adult medicine diseases. So a lot of your chronic disease of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, a lot of autoimmune disorders that we've been able to get patients better. And it's sort of that, I term it adjunctive care, because we're adding things to, especially an autoimmune patient, where they're actually getting better. And the rheumatologists are actually surprised that they're getting better because of the added diet and supplements that we're able to add. And I'm also seeing weight loss is a big one. Or people just with brain fog and cognitive decline, we're seeing a lot of that. Now, my other partners, they're family medicine, so they will see pediatrics. And a lot of the children have asthma, ADHD, difficulties with weight gain or weight loss, or a lot of GI disorders. So, and likewise, I see a lot of GI disorders in terms of colitis and IBS and dietary allergies. So it's for the first time I'm actually applying my nutrition knowledge that I learned 40 years ago.
That's amazing. So, what it sounds like you're actually creating here is a new standard of care, right? So what's it like, sort of bumping up against the old standard of care where you have sort of like, there's so many things that are really different about it than what you were doing before. What's that sort of like tightrope walking? It must be like walking a tightrope.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I always try to preface it by saying we're doing nutrition-based medicine, because a lot of times they think we're just pushing supplements, and we're not. We're actually changing people's lifestyle, changing their diet. If they have inadequacies within their nutritional base, we will supply nutrients. And if it's via supplements, that's to bring them up to a higher level. I think that we're having to prove ourselves, and that's a good thing, because a lot of nutrition can be foggy in terms of some of the literature and some of the research, and presenting it in a very logical, scientific manner so that the clinical staff here will understand it. Because most physicians do not understand nutrition, and they haven't been really trained. If they were lucky, they might have had 4 or 8 hours in medical school, and the literature can be confusing in terms of what diets to use, what nutrients, and so a lot of times they don't know what to say to a patient. They'll tell them just eat less, and the patient just walks away kind of feeling pretty disappointed in the care that they're given in terms of that category of nutrition and lifestyle. So I think the component that we can bring is just added value to any patient's medical care.
What's it like? I know, a big thing about what I've seen, just walking around the clinic, and what we've seen is using the power of community, right? In the shared medical visits, but also in the pods that the practitioners are working within. What's it like bringing in new providers into what's probably kind of like an alien structure for them?
So bringing in like nutritionists and health coaches.
Yeah, or even like physician's assistants, nurse practitioners into like something where they've never really done this before. They've never done a shared medical visit.
Sure. No, I think everyone who gets involved in the shared medical appointments come back feeling, we almost feel better than the patient, because the patient's camaraderie is so incredible, and you're part of their journey and their healing. And as a physician, you see a patient once or twice a year, and in this 10-week shared medical appointments, I'll be seeing them 4 times, and the health coaches see them equally, and then the dietitian sees them even more, 6 times. So all of a sudden, the patient has so many touch points that they really feel like they're being taken care of, and then the patients take care of themselves, which is wonderful. But I think what it's done is it creates a common language that I can talk to the health coach, talk to the dietitian, all about the same patients, and we are all on the same page in terms of how we're approaching the care for that patient. And normally, I never even talked to a dietitian when I was in my prior practice. So this is so unique, like you have daily touch points.
Is there a particular type of practitioner that you think works better in this sort of environment?
Someone who's flexible. You have to be flexible, you have to be open-minded, you have to be willing to work with other subspecialties, and their care is equal to the care that you give. So there's this mutual respect that goes on, because a dietitian's input and a health coach's input and our behavior health specialist, who's a licensed social worker, all of their care is for the success of your patient. And I can't do it all. So it's actually quite unique in that way.
Amazing. And I guess the last question I have is just, looking forward from here, you've been here 18 months. What do you see in the next 18 months as sort of like a priority for your work? And what do you think we can expect to see over the next 18 months to show the progress that's been made on the project?
So definitely going forward is providing more of our publications, and we're very close to submitting 2 by the end of this year. The randomized controlled trials, those are going to be a little bit longer, but that's the next step. So I think research is the biggest thing we're trying to push. But we're also have a lot of tentacles out there. So another big thing that they're looking at is maybe developing like a food pharmacy, and that's huge, which is more community-based, but expanding our community base, because the pillars of the Cleveland Clinic are, patient care, research, education, and also community. So the Daniel Plan is something that has been going on the whole time. We're continuing to keep that going and expand it, but then also getting ourselves involved in other subspecialties. So we want to cooperate more and collaborate more, I should say, with the diabetes department and endocrine with our diabetic patients, and also with the GI department, and becoming more integral in their care, that the patient has choices, so that they have functional medicine as one avenue or standard medical care for the other avenue. Beautiful. And it will And it's really up to the patient too. And we're finding with a 3,000 patient wait list that people want this. They want functional medicine. They want to come here.
Beautiful. Well, look, thank you so much for taking time to sit with us. Really excited to be able to showcase what's happening here. So much for other practitioners to learn, so much for other medical organizations around the world to learn. And thank you for your pioneering work.
It was wonderful to be here. Thanks for coming.
All right, so if you've been following us for a while, you know that we've been pretty big here at the Evolution of Medicine on group visits and shared medical visits. So we thought, why not? Let's speak to someone who's actually doing that here in the Cleveland Clinic. So we're super excited to be working here with Logan. She's a PA. So Logan, had you ever done a shared medical visit before you came to the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine?
I had not. I had never actually even heard of shared medical appointments prior to learning that I would be facilitating them.
So tell me about the learning curve as you started.
So learning the material that the patients would need to know was probably the biggest learning curve, but once we got the material down, it's really just interacting with a group of people and helping them understand their illness and disease state, and it just really came naturally after that. But once the groups start to get rolling, the patients start to get to know each other, they're extremely comfortable to facilitate.
Yeah, so what's your what's been the sort of the things that you see out of it that's most valuable for patient care?
So we have a team of practitioners and providers that help lead the patients through our shared medical appointments. So they're 10 weeks long. The patients come in every week. They see either a provider like myself, a health coach, or a dietitian. We all work together to lead the patient through the program. I would have to say that the secret ingredient in the group actually is the group dynamic itself. So what's exciting is to watch these 8 to 12 individuals come in as strangers on week 1, and on a week 10, hugging each other goodbye, exchanging Facebook or email information, and really creating a community to work together towards health as they move forward. So I think the community aspect of the patients working together to understand the material and move forward has been the kind of the secret ingredient there.
Have you found ways to sort of test whether that's happening well and kind of speed that up at the beginning?
So we have the patients kind of talk about goals. So we talk about goals that are measurable, like weight loss or decrease in certain lab markers, but we also talk about goals that you can't measure, whether they want to be able to run around with their kids or want to be able to go back to work full time. And when the patients are kind of asked to share that information, they bond with each other. They realize they're not alone in their suffering with their illness, and everyone else in the room has common struggles. So really allowing them time to talk and ask questions and interact, I think, is what kind of forms the bond.
Yeah, one of the things that we've heard from other practitioners across the country is just sort of this like balance of introverts and extroverts, right? Some people want to know the answer to a question but just don't feel confident in that. Have you sort of experienced that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's certainly patients in each group that kind of ask most of the questions, but I think we've done a really great job, especially the health coaches here, really engage with the patients, get to know them, and help them come out of their shell so that it's not so kind of one-sided in a room with the kind of extroverts running the show there. But I think we do a really good job of creating an intimate space for them to feel comfortable.
Is there sort of a culture of health creation that you have to sort of create in the first appointment to have people realize this is very different actually than any other medicine they probably had before?
Sure. We have, I think, kind of different scopes of patients. We have some patients that are functional medicine pros that have read all of Dr. Hyman's books and have maybe done some of the different diet plans and are on some of the supplements. And we have some patients that, they heard about it from their brother or sister or their doctor sent them in. And so we try to get everyone on the same kind of playing field. And we really teach them that food is medicine as our first step. And so teaching them to understand that this is really a culture of wellness, like you're saying. It does take some work on the first couple visits to get them to kind of jump into that. But normally, once they've done the changes that we recommend for a couple of weeks, they're sold and they understand.
Incredible. So a healthy culture, good use of community, good use of coaching, all based in functional medicine, seems like a great recipe for success. Is there anything that, obviously we have a lot of practitioners watching from all around the world who are trying to sort of build successful functional medicine practices. Is there any advice that you have for them about, from your experience of, creating the best kind of patient outcomes for chronic disease?
So obviously the way we're managing chronic disease right now is not working, right? So something's got to give. And I really think that the shared medical appointment setting is phenomenal. And the reason being is that as a provider, I have a full hour to sit there with a group of people 4 times throughout our shared medical appointment sessions that we have with them to educate them on their lab values, to educate them on why we're doing what we're doing, to educate them on what's actually going on with their disease states. And in my experience, it's not that patients are lazy or non-compliant that they're sick, it's that they just don't understand what they need to do to get themselves well. So I think that really utilizing the shared medical appointment to take time to educate patients will keep them healthy.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. So much use of the shared medical appointment here. Happy providers, too. I think it looked like this is more fun than working in the ER.
Yes. I love acute care, but managing chronic illness is where my heart's at. So I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So, yeah, here we are at the Cleveland Clinic. Best practices. Thanks so much, Logan, for being part of the show. One of the things that we're trying to showcase on this tour is cool, young doctors going outside of the box and doing their own thing. So to teach you about how community and what healthcare can learn about community from CrossFit and their work, please welcome a husband and wife team par excellence, Julie Fouché and Dr. Dan Curio.
All right, do we have any CrossFitters in the crowd today? A few? All right, awesome. So we're off to a good start. So as James said, I'm Julie. This is my husband, Danny. We're here to tell you today a little bit about our experience of being very involved in the CrossFit community while going through our conventional medical training and how we've come to realize the true importance of community when delivering healthcare. So Danny and I first moved to Cleveland 7 or 8 years ago to start medical school, and we were your typical first-year medical students, very excited and enthusiastic about learning about biochemistry and physiology, and how we could help patients who are suffering from disease when these symptoms went wrong. But as you can probably imagine, after sitting through our first couple years of medical school, we started to get frustrated because we were learning that the standard treatments for chronic diseases were focusing more on treating biomarkers and treating symptoms than they were on treating the root cause. We were also really surprised to learn that in the practice of medicine, lifestyle factors like exercise and nutrition, which we both knew personally to be incredibly important for creating health, were often quickly passed by and dismissed as being too difficult for patients to implement.
So when we weren't studying medicine, we spent quite a bit of time in the CrossFit gym, either as coaches or as athletes, and Julie was training for the CrossFit Games at the time. And it became really clear to us that we were living in 2 separate worlds. So on the one side, in the primary care clinic, patients were coming in every 6 months for their chronic disease management visit, and they were getting more and more medications, thinking that it was the right thing. And they were getting sicker and sicker. And then, lifestyle factors were really kind of passed by as kind of not worth it, or they were briefly mentioned and along the lines of, you should really eat less and exercise more. So that was really frustrating. On the other hand, in the CrossFit gym, this is where Julie and I spent most of our time, we saw a much different story. So there, people were changing the way they were eating. They were a part of a community that they felt they had meaning to, and they felt they belonged there. And we saw the exact opposite trend. So people were actually getting off of their medicines, and they were reversing chronic disease, not just managing it like in the primary care clinic.
So one of the greatest examples of this that stuck with me was a patient that I met during my second year of med school. His name is Pete Katz, and he's graciously allowed me to share his story with you today. I met Pete when I was working with one of my primary care mentors in medical school. He was coming in for his annual physical. And Pete has a story that's very typical of our middle-aged American. So he was active in his 20s, he was a former triathlete, but then as the decades went on and he became busy with work and family, he started to become overweight, more stressed, more sedentary, and suddenly he was facing multiple chronic conditions. So over the years, Pete gained diagnoses such as anxiety, sleep apnea, hyperlipidemia, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and even fatty liver disease. He had a growing list of pharmaceutical medications that helped to keep his biomarkers in an acceptable range and to try to keep his symptoms at bay. But he said he never really felt like himself. And he would go through various phases of trying exercise, running again or swimming again, and trying various fad diets. His weight would go up and down, but he never really found something that stuck. That was until his doctor threatened him with an injectable diabetes medication, and he finally found something that worked for him for the long term. So Pete started following a paleo diet, and he joined his local CrossFit affiliate. And this is Pete today. Yeah, big difference. So Pete jumped feet first into the CrossFit lifestyle, and he hasn't looked back since. He's now free and has reversed all of his chronic conditions. His hemoglobin A1C went from an 11.4 all the way down to 5.1. He lost 75 pounds, and he's now off all of his medications. And even today, 6 years after first stepping foot in the CrossFit affiliate, he's still a staple in his local CrossFit community, and his health and his quality of life are better than they've ever been. Now, Pete's just one example. He's one person. It really stuck with me when I was a second-year medical student. But the fact is, there are 12,000 CrossFit affiliates around the world, and transformations like this are happening every single day.
So you're probably wondering what makes CrossFit so special and why did it work so well for Pete and so many others around the world? And for those of you that don't know, CrossFit is an exercise regimen where you combine functional movements, so movements like weightlifting, gymnastics, endurance exercises, like running, into high-intensity workouts. And the power of CrossFit really spans much further than just an exercise regimen. It builds community. And the way that's done is by leading these classes with an instructor who scales the movements according to each person's ability level. So you might be surprised, but it's not uncommon to have a high schooler working out next to his grandmother. So imagine that, going to a traditional gym and seeing that. So you know that's something really special. And the goals of CrossFit are much different. So it's all about learning new things, growth, and then also fitness. And burning calories too, that helps as well. But it's really not the focus. And people are overcoming fears. They're getting their first pull-up. They're getting their first push-up. And they're achieving new goals. And it's this shared sense of overcoming adversity that's really the glue of CrossFit. It's really what forms this tribe. And as this tribe and this community gets healthier and becomes more fit, lifestyle changes start to happen. People start to think about what they're eating. People think about, okay, should I have that cookie? Should I have that piece of cake? Well, maybe not. I'm going to hit that workout with my friends, or with my grandma, later that day. Probably shouldn't have that cookie. But what really happens is that people learn how what they do on a daily basis affects their overall health, right? And the end result is that health is restored and then chronic disease falls away.
So CrossFit as an organization now is making an even more concerted effort to try to reach these people who are most in need of these lifestyle changes. And CrossFit's founder, Greg Glassman, has also played an integral role over the past several years in trying to expose some of the corruption in the health sciences, especially in scientific research and the beverage industry. And there's even a division of CrossFit now called CrossFit Health, whose aim is to educate the public on the ills of modern medicine and also to educate as many physicians as possible, like you see in this picture, so that they understand the true methodology of CrossFit and we can get more people like Pete who really need a lifestyle change into that environment of the CrossFit community where they're more likely to make that change last for a lifetime.
So it's really through our personal and professional careers as physicians and as ambassadors of CrossFit that we've really realized, like James said, that health is created in communities like CrossFit, and this is really the future.
Yeah, so we really believe that health is created in communities like these, and we're really excited to be a part of this new vision for healthcare. Thanks.
Yeah, I had an amazing opportunity to, to really see like the parallels of, what we were trying to do with functional medicine with CrossFit, and looking at like the CrossFit box owner and the functional medicine doctor owner as a way to get more, in this case, trainers to start their own gyms and start a movement, and in this case, doctors starting their own practices, go low overhead, use the power of community. And there's a lot of similar ideas in there, and I think there's a lot that we can learn. So that's a wrap. It's been great to be here in Cleveland. We've got such a warm welcome. It's been amazing to have a chance to walk around the campus, to see the Center for Functional Medicine. The Cleveland Clinic will long be remembered as the first major medical academic institution to bring in a Center for Functional Medicine. It surely won't be the last. This is James Maskell from the Cleveland Clinic. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.